It's a classic basketball question. Which star players improve in the playoffs, and which ones decline the most? To answer this, we often rely on specific, memorable moments, whether it's a legendary shot or a series-turning miss. But what if we looked at the totality of a player's performance? What if we compared his overall level of play during the regular season to his overall postseason play? If we did that for every star in NBA history, who changes the most in the second season? Before we answer that, we have to figure out how we're going to assess overall play. One common practice has been scanning a player's basketball reference page and eyeballing any changes in key playoff stats, especially scoring ones. But one problem with this approach, besides ignoring any of the context around those stats, is that it doesn't account for opponent strength. So to control for various levels of playoff competition, I've adjusted a player's scoring efficiency based on the opponent's regular season defensive quality. For example, a 60% true shooter would be 4% better than the defenses he faced in the regular season this year. But if his playoff competition were stiff, he could shoot 56% and still be 4% better. In this case, we'd say his playoff efficiency didn't change. Now, to account for the quality of a player's own teammates, I've called upon my version of box plus minus, which includes teammate strength in assessing a player's performance on offense. In other words, it gauges the value of a player's stats slightly differently depending on how his teammates performed. We want to sift out non-prime seasons too in order to avoid comparing players when they weren't performing like stars, so only high-quality years were included in the comparison. And if we filter out players with less playoff experience, we're left with a list that includes most of the great players in NBA history. Among these stars, the average player improved his offensive BPM by 0.3 points in the playoffs. The largest offensive decline among these all-time players belongs to Stephen Curry. That might come as a surprise, but it's almost entirely caused by knee sprains in 2016 and 2018, causing his all-around production to plummet. He's actually improved a touch in other playoff runs, with a pretty typical regular season to postseason profile among greats, save for an increase in turnovers. If we overlook Steph's injuries, James Harden sees the sharpest drop in the playoffs. It's not just Harden's scoring, though. His three-point shooting dips by 3 percentage points, and his shot creation falls off too. Harden's offensive BPM has declined in 6 of his prior 7 postseasons, but he's so good in the regular season that he's still a superstar on that end. He's plus 4.7 in this stat over the last 3 years, which ranks 21st all-time on offense. David Robinson was known for shrinking in the playoffs, and he owns the 3rd largest decline per this method. Robinson's scoring is the primary culprit, although, unlike Harden, he was never an offensive superstar according to this stat. The 4th largest drop belongs to Larry Bird, which is surprising given all of his notable heroics over the years. Bird's scoring and creation took a dive in the playoffs, although he still put up some of the best numbers ever. In fairness to Larry, he battled injuries in a number of these playoff runs as well. Karl Malone had a reputation for choking in the second season, and he suffered the 5th largest overall drop using this method. Malone was more hit or miss, although his drop-off largely coincided with aging. He actually improved by about a quarter point until 1997, his age 33 season, which was, ironically, his first MVP year. Kevin Garnett saw a statistical dip on offense in the playoffs, although not quite as extreme as his reputation can make it out to be. His scoring was slightly worse, with a healthy uptick in turnovers. Another Kevin Durant, has seen a larger drop-off in his scoring numbers, caused by a healthy 4% drop in three-point shooting come playoff time. If we ran this exercise after the 2016 season, Durant would actually challenge Harden's place on this list due to massive drop-offs in scoring and playmaking during the 2014 and 2016 playoffs. So what about the players who have improved their numbers in the postseason? Some view Chris Paul as a choker after a handful of infamous playoff moments, but his numbers actually go up in the second season. His box plus minus improved every postseason from 2013 through 2017 when he was with the Clippers. More on Paul in a moment. Paul's numerical shift is similar to Kobe Bryant's postseason change, except Kobe basically maintained his volume scoring and efficiency in addition to his playmaking. LeBron James is in the same boat too. He's seen a minor dip in playoff scoring efficiency, but otherwise looks fairly similar to his regular season self. If you're wondering why his offensive BPM goes up, remember, the metric accounts for teammate performance when estimating the value of a player's contributions. Tim Duncan and Shaquille O'Neal have similar regular to postseason profiles as well. So, who are the players who have improved the most? Well, the fifth spot belongs to Isiah Thomas, the original one, who consistently outperformed his regular season numbers when he reached the postseason. His scoring improved, his passing improved, and as a result, he created more offense for teammates. Notably, he did this while drastically minimizing his turnovers. Number 4 on the list is Hakeem Olajuwon, who has a strong claim for the top spot when we apply a little context. Between age 23 and 32, the 10-year heart of his career, Hakeem's offensive box plus minus improved by a whopping 1.4 points in the playoffs, with all of his numbers spiking across the board. This 10-year stretch is arguably the most impressive statistical change in NBA playoff history. Coming in at number 3 on this list is John Havlicek, who improved his BPM an incredible 11 consecutive times to start his playoff career. Havlicek does have the lowest starting point of any of these players in this stat, but he qualified just enough times to land here. Fun note, the only notable player in NBA history with a larger bump in scoring efficiency come playoff time is Robert Horry. The second largest improvement in box score numbers belongs to Reggie Miller, who has the biggest volume scoring increase of any star ever. From 1993 to 1996, Miller played a blistering 38 playoff games in which he averaged 27.7 points per 75 on efficiency 10.5% better than his opponents, scoring numbers similar to Steph Curry's first MVP season back in 2015. And the top spot belongs to none other than Michael Jordan, who, despite sitting at the top of the heap in regular season scoring volume, somehow improves his scoring in the playoffs. What's notable about Jordan is that his playmaking jumps in the second season too, specifically during his apex from 1989 to 1993, when he cracked open Eastern Conference defenses designed to trap or double team him. Thus far, our analysis has not only been box score centric, but offense centric. For instance, the overall BPM changes are slightly different than the offense-only ones. Havlicek and Isiah rise the most, Malone falls off more than anyone. But if we narrow our time period to the play-by-play era, we can also include plus-minus data to provide a more holistic snapshot of value for recent players. Augmented plus-minus, an estimate of per-game value accounting for teammate and opponent strength using plus-minus data, shows Michael Jordan with a sizable playoff increase in 1997 and 1998, improving in value by 1.2 points during those years. Reggie Miller also improved in this metric at the end of his career. But, interestingly, James Harden's postseason change is just like almost any other star, and he's just below average in another hybrid stat, PIPM, which accounts for shooting luck when blending the box score with plus-minus numbers. In both augmented plus-minus and PIPM, Steph Curry falls off more than any notable player of the last 20 years, again dragged down by those injuries in 2016 and 2018. Outside of Curry, the star who loses the most shine when we incorporate plus-minus data is Chris Paul, who falls off nearly as much as Curry, losing 2 more points per game than the average star player. Paul's decline stems from a disastrous 2012 playoffs in which he played through a finger and hip injury, but CP3 still goes down slightly in impact even in his other seasons, despite that uptick in his box score numbers. Finally, if we loosen the filter ever so slightly, Klay Thompson actually has the largest playoff decline of any recent player, massively trailing off in scoring and efficiency, while his more holistic impact metrics take a nosedive as well. Of note, his teammate Draymond Green has one of the largest all-around improvements of any player. Of course, none of these stats perfectly measure performance, but they do a great job of helping us understand changes within a player's own performance. And when we add a little additional context, we're left with a really clear picture of who the biggest fallers and who the biggest risers were in the crucible of the NBA playoffs. If you want to help me make more content, you can head over to patreon.com/thinkingbasketball and sign up as a patron. You'll get access to historical stats like the ones used to make this video, patron-only posts, and private discussion threads for questions and conversation topics. Otherwise, enjoy the 2019 playoffs, and I hope you're having a great day.